Sergio Perez nearly took the 2023 Formula One World Championship lead with his victory ahead of Max Verstappen in Jeddah. But while he was excellent out there, does that mean the Red Bull driver is now a potential title contender? Let's find out. In the high-octane world of Formula One, nothing is ever set in stone. Sergio Perez knows this all too well, having joined Red Bull Racing as the supposed second driver to Max Verstappen. But don't be fooled by the Mexican's humble demeanor. He's got his sights set on the top spot. In the past, Perez may have been content to play second fiddle to Verstappen, but something has changed this season. With no external rivals in sight, the two drivers seem locked in an intra-team battle. And after a dominant performance in Jeddah, Perez is making a case for himself as Red Bull's leading man. But it won't be an easy road to the top. If Perez wants to take the championship, he'll have to risk it all, pushing himself and his car to the limit, taking on his teammate head-to-head and never backing down. There's something thrilling about watching two teammates go head-to-head for the title. It's a battle that can completely change the rules of engagement, forcing drivers to reveal their true colors and test the limits of their own abilities. And with Perez and Verstappen at the helm, we're in for one wild ride. It was supposed to be Max Verstappen's weekend. The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was his to dominate. But fate had other plans, as a drive shaft failure knocked him out of qualifying, leaving him starting from a lowly 15th position, while Perez started from pole position. During the race on Sunday, Sergio Perez seemed to have it all under control, cruising ahead in the race. But just when it seemed like Perez had secured the win, a safety car reset the race, bringing Verstappen right back into the mix. Despite Verstappen's best efforts, he couldn't make up the gap to Perez. The team tried to issue orders to both drivers to hold station, but Verstappen couldn't resist, pushing for the win. Yet every time he upped the pace, Perez responded with even more speed and skill. It was a perfectly judged act of on-track defiance by Perez, who refused to let Verstappen take the lead. Lap after lap, the two drivers pushed themselves and their cars to the limit. But in the end, it was Perez who emerged victorious. It wasn't the kind of wheel-to-wheel battle that makes the highlight reels, but it was a thrilling display of skill and determination by Perez. He proved that he was no mere number 2 driver, but a force to be reckoned with in his own right. Perez said, "I enjoyed it a lot, especially at the end, just pushing each other with the lap times, knowing that he went a 10th faster, a 10th slower, a 10th faster. It was all pretty intense." Even team boss Christian Horner was impressed. He said that was, I think, his greatest Grand Prix. So it was an undeniably great performance. But can Perez keep it up? His form last season suggests not. He started similarly strong, with pole in Saudi Arabia that would have led to victory were it not for a badly timed safety car. Still, he bounced back strongly with 6 podiums in the following 8 races, including a victory in Monaco that got him to within 15 points of Verstappen's lead. But he fell away after that. He out-qualified Verstappen only 3 more times and collected only 5 more podiums, only one of which was a win. He was blown away 454-305 in the final standings. Consider too that Perez has always been good around street circuits. Both of his pole positions have come in Saudi Arabia, and 4 of his 5 wins, just under a third of his 28 podiums, have come on public streets. Combined, it paints a picture that urges caution rather than promotes the idea that Perez might be in the early stages of a genuine challenge. But there's some reason for optimism too. Last year's fade-out was partly due to the RB18 being developed to better suit Verstappen after a troublesome start to life. This year, the team believes it has a machine that can work for both drivers. So far, Perez has sounded positive about the tools he has at its disposal with the RB19. And considering Red Bull Racing appears to have a massive advantage over the field, Perez might get more time to mold his car around him rather than being railroaded into a development program that makes the car faster, but at the expense of his preferences. There is only one path to the championship for Sergio Perez, and it's a treacherous one that won't be easy. The question on everyone's mind is whether Sergio Perez has what it takes to beat his teammate Max Verstappen in a straight fight. After all, Verstappen is a generational talent, a driver who has been hailed as one of the best of his generation. But history tells us that anything is possible in Formula One. Just look at Nico Rosberg, who managed to beat his teammate Lewis Hamilton to the 2016 championship. No one can deny that Hamilton was faster than Rosberg that year, but the German was smarter and more determined to capitalize on his rival's mistakes and misfortune. Rosberg pushed himself to the absolute limit, extracting every ounce of talent and focus to stay ahead of Hamilton. The mental strain was enormous and it took a toll on him. He retired at the end of the year, certain that he would never be able to reproduce that level of intensity again. The battle between Rosberg and Hamilton was fought as much off the track as on it. The atmosphere inside Mercedes was toxic, with animosity between the two drivers reaching legendary levels. Toto Wolff had to randomly rotate mechanics between cars to try to clear the air, but even that couldn't prevent them from crashing into each other twice. Both were accused of breaking team rules on engine modes and strategy strategies and mind games were prolific. Both were threatened with the sack after wiping each other out of the 2016 Spanish Grand Prix on the first lap, an escalation practically unheard of in modern Formula One. The question Perez has to ask himself is whether he's prepared to risk everything in an internal war to see if Verstappen will crack. Perez will have to match Rosberg's determination and focus. He might just have a shot at the championship. After all, in Formula One, anything is possible. Despite Max Verstappen's status as a generational talent, there have been instances where he has allowed his emotions to get the better of him, leading to a dip in performance. One such example was at last year's Singapore Grand Prix, when Verstappen's outburst over an underfuel error affected his race performance, allowing Perez to take the win. Just this weekend, in Saudi Arabia, Rosberg stated that Verstappen refused to show up to his engineering debrief on Saturday night after his drive shaft failed, which he also unleashed on the team. He said at the end of the weekend, when you're fighting for a championship, when it looks like it's just between two cars, we have to make sure that also the two cars are reliable. We know too that the Verstappen camp inside Red Bull Racing, led by father Jos Verstappen and manager Raymond Vermeulen, is volatile to say the least. They've been uncompromising in bending the team around Max. There's long been a rumor that they were key influences in the team's Sky Sports boycott last year over commentary regarding Verstappen's 2021 championship victory. There was also the memorable team orders debacle in Brazil last year, after which Vermeulen was seen in animated conversation with Christian Horner and Helmut Marko after last year's team orders drama in Brazil. The team later published a watered-down media release exonerating Max. That incident was clear evidence that Verstappen feels so empowered by the situation that he considers himself beyond reproach internally. But if this year's championship is fought exclusively between him and Perez, Red Bull Racing will feel at least some obligation to deliver a fair battle. Not to do so would risk having 2023 defined by the mismanagement of its drivers and tarnish what ought to be a glittering achievement. And in this case, what is ordinarily an entrenched, unlosable position might be ripe for wedging by a strong internal challenge. It would risk destabilizing the team that is already missing the late Dietrich Mateschitz from its foundations. Perez would be playing with his career at the team. But as Rosberg demonstrated, sometimes that's the only way to close an otherwise unbridgeable gap of pure pace. First, Perez needs to prove he can win his battles on the track. Only then might he have the chance to win the war. After the race, Perez took to Twitter to outline his intentions during this season. He said, "It was tougher than I thought, but in the end, I'm happy to get my 5th victory in F1. Very happy with the result of the team. We are going to keep pushing very hard. I want to be a champion." However, the tweet was deleted soon after, and Perez reposted something along similar lines, but omitted his title ambitions. He tweeted, "It was tougher than I thought, but in the end, I'm happy to get my 5th F1 victory. Very happy with the result of the team. We will continue to push very hard." It remains to be seen what impact the deleted tweet has on their relationship, with Verstappen not afraid to express his frustrations with his car following the race in Jeddah rather than praise Perez. The 25-year-old had fumed. "Now again, after 3 positive practice sessions, I have an issue in qualifying. Of course, I recovered to 2nd, which is good. In general, the whole feeling in the team, everyone is happy. But personally, I'm not happy because I'm not here to be 2nd. What's your thought on this? Do you think Perez will be willing to start an intra-team civil war just so that he can win an F1 title? Let us know in the comment section below.